Hello, I'm Andy Gears, and it's now pretty much 4 years since our team began building the Serpent and the Seed, a mobile adventure game that's designed to engage your emotions with gorgeous graphics, amazing music, some gentle puzzle mechanics and mini-games, and a story of a cosmic scale that hopefully might just make you think about the real world a little differently. It's actually a journey that started almost 20 years ago. In January 2005, I published a blog post setting out my dream. I wanted to make an adventure game based on the Bible. Not something nerdy that only Christians would be interested in, but something fun and beautiful. Something that didn't assume anything about your existing beliefs and that could help people explore the Bible at their own pace. I actually got pretty far designing a game based on one particular Old Testament story. But as a 21-year-old, I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I didn't have any money or connections. And after 10 years of hard work, all there really was to show for it was a bunch of blog posts and YouTube videos. But at the end of 2020, by this stage, I was running a charity building Christian apps, discipleship tech. I had an idea for a slightly different take on the concept. What if, instead of just trying to build a game about one specific Bible passage, instead we tried to teach the overarching story of the whole Bible? Was such a thing even possible without it quickly becoming massively overscoped? I decided I would commit just one afternoon to trying to come up with a structure for a game, ideally with 4 or 5 main levels. And just like that, by the end of the afternoon, I felt like I had something that could work. So I gave my buddy Dan Gould a call. Yo, Dan, what's up? So you know how you used to be a game designer for some big name studios? Yeah. And you know how you've had some theological training? You got that straight. Well, I've had this crazy idea for a game, and I think you might be the perfect person to help me figure out what the player should actually do. Of course. Well, what if you're like in the Garden of Eden and you meet Adam and Eve? Well, how about you help Adam name some of the animals and plant some things in the garden and stuff? Here's some storyboards. Oh, and one last thing. I think you should be a bird. We quickly got Act 1 to the point where I wanted to crack on and build it. But me being me, I quickly got overexcited and wanted to know what the game would actually look like. And after putting a shout out on Facebook, by some divine intervention I got connected with Daniel Starling, someone who'd studied game art and design and who was also working as a youth worker in a church. When he first sent me his portfolio, I felt like he was totally the wrong fit for this project. It seemed mostly 3D sci-fi characters. But when I told Daniel that, he said, well, what style are you looking for? So I told him I wanted something a bit more whimsical, like an Oliver Jeffers book. So the next day, he sent me this, and immediately I loved it. Like any great concept artist, Daniel's real skill is his versatility and his ability to come up with new ideas. I could ask him for some concepts for what Adam and Eve should look like, and he might give me a dozen different ideas, and I might not like any of them, and yet somehow he could then come up with a dozen totally different ideas, until eventually we honed in on something that worked. As well as helping me figure out what some of the key moments in the game should look like, Daniel also turned out to have one other really valuable skill. He could take the storyboards that our game designer Dan was producing and turn them into concrete level designs, mapping out the geography of the Garden of Eden or whatever scene I gave him. This proved absolutely invaluable as the project went on and was a really vital part of our workflow. The other really key collaboration that we established early on was with our musicians, Jesse and Leah Roberts from the USA, better known as Poor Bishop Hooper. I came across them after they shared a song based on Matthew's genealogy of Jesus.
Abraham fathered Isaac.
Hardly inspiring source material, you would think.
Isaac fathered Jacob.
And yet, it was one of the most beautiful things I'd ever heard.
Jacob fathered Judah and his brother.
I'd been thinking for a while that I really wanted some kind of song to go with each of the 4 chapters of the game. And as soon as I came across 4 Bishop Hooper, I knew they were the people I wanted to do it. So I tentatively reached out. I said, I don't know if you do commissions, and even if you did, I don't know if you'd be at all interested in computer games. But I'm trying to make a game based around trees in the Bible, since that's the framework we'd settled on by then to tie the big Bible story together. And would you be interested? It seemed like it was only a few hours before I had an email back from Jessie saying, we'd love to talk. Because only a week or so ago, Leah was saying, wouldn't it be cool to make an album about trees in the Bible? It was one of those examples of God's timing that really makes you chuckle. So over the past few years, they have written and recorded 4 incredible songs that really engage your emotions with these key moments in the Bible story. They've also created dozens of other tracks of background music for the rest of the game to connect it all together into this wonderful, cohesive whole. It's hard to overstate what a crucial part of the game experience their music is. It's so much more than just some background filler.
By the terebinth tree, when I had no seed.
So then we just had to crack on and get the rest of the game figured out. I made the mistake early on of trying to jump straight into building what I thought would be the final quality game. It was a time-consuming business, and the results were alright, I guess. But something was niggling at me. I realised it just wasn't fun. It was Dan Gould who helped me understand where I'd gone wrong. We didn't need pretty graphics at this stage. What I needed was to get on and prototype those key game moments, to find the fun. That was something that could be done super quickly and cheaply. And so after a week or so, I had this collection of little interactive moments, basically interactive versions of those original storyboards. And even with these placeholder graphics, it was already feeling so much better to play. So that process took us through to the end of 2022, storyboarding the whole game, prototyping those key moments, turning them into concrete level designs with character concepts and the music to go with them, and working with another developer, John Collins, who helped build out some of the underlying code architecture. And by the end of that year, we basically had a complete working prototype of the whole of the first 3 acts. I deliberately wanted to leave the conclusion till later, until we had a better sense of what the game was evolving into. The time had come to hire an artist who could take Daniel's concepts and turn them into the final quality artwork. Whoa, stop right there. That's going to cost you a fortune, not to mention how much time it's going to take. And you'll never get that money back if you hire the wrong person, or even if you just manage the project badly and spend too long in the wrong places. And let's face it, you've proved yourself pretty good at that.
Guys, hello.
Oh, hi James Doc.
I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you half an hour every week, Andy. I'm going to make sure you don't mess this up.
Well, I guess that could work. Well, let me tell you, this was an absolute game changer. The project would also simply not have been possible without the financial support of a number of charitable grants. Thanks for taking a risk on our crazy project. And also thank you to everybody who donated to our crowdfunder back in 2023. I love you.
The artist we settled on was Greg Clifton, yet another talented team member with a real heart for using his skills to help people discover Jesus. We spent a little time early on exploring a few different artistic styles, until I saw this image and immediately knew that we had struck gold. And so began an intense period of just going through these scenes one by one, drawing, and translating that into Unity. It was fantastic to see the synergy between Greg and Daniel, and how Greg could take Daniel's concepts and turn them into something amazing. The real highlight of this phase has been finally getting to share snippets of the game with the public. We shared a ludicrously early build just 3 months into working with Greg,
and with some new gorgeous lettering by Sophie Killingly as well. But already people loved it, and it gave us such a boost. We came so close to deciding it was too early and giving up hope of being able to share it at that conference. But I dread to think how the whole trajectory of the project would have faltered if James Dock hadn't urged me to make sure we hit that deadline. This year we've gone further afield, and instead of just sharing it at Christian conferences, we've shared it in secular contexts like Pocket Gamer and the London Games Festival. And it's been wonderful to see how the wider public have embraced it too. And if you're liking what you see, make sure to like and subscribe to make sure you get kept up to date. And all the while, we've continued building. We've gone way beyond the Garden of Eden now, covering moments like Abraham and Sarah, Moses and Pharaoh, David and Goliath, then on to the New Testament with scenes like the parable of the sower, the Last Supper and the crucifixion. Greg has now drawn pretty much every scene in the game. We have pretty much every piece of music done. Joshua and Gavin have helped us light the scenes to make the Garden of Eden look extra gorgeous. Woody is helping add sound effects to bring it all to life. And I'm finally going back and filling in some of the framing narrative that surrounds the game to set it in context. So here we are, pretty much 4 years after the project began. We're hoping to release Act 1 early next year, with the other acts following as quickly after that as we can manage. It's been such a roller coaster ride since that first blog post 20 years ago, and I can't wait to get it into people's hands.